Hey everyone. I'm gonna give it like 2 minutes before I start here. I am hoping that my audio is good. It looks like it's going, but adjust this a little bit. This is a little bit different camera angle just because right now I'm able to take advantage of the sunlight. It is chilly here in Texas, which is weird, even though it is October. So end of October, almost November. Let me go ahead. We're gonna share this real quick. Cool. All right, I'm gonna give it another minute here. If anyone's here, you can chat and I will be able to see it. I've not done a live before, so this is gonna be an adventure for everyone. Should be pretty fun though, because we're gonna dive right into some cool stuff. So I'm gonna give one more minute here. Cool. All right, let's get to it. So I'm gonna go through the three primary ways that a directory site can be profitable. There are technically others, and you can mix and match things, but they all kind of stem from the same concepts. So I'm going to dive into the three big ones and the three that make the most sense for most people. Not talking about like special circumstances where you might have different connections that allow you to make a directory website and target a different audience or utilize those connections. So these are basically just like the three things that anyone could do. And I'm just going to walk through exactly what to do. So no secrets here. There's going to be about 18 minutes of how to make thousands of dollars from a directory website. And this is real stuff that not only have people done, but the team at Offline Sharks, they've done really, really successfully. And Smart Directory AI obviously is a huge proponent or a huge part of that. All right. So let's go ahead and start bringing it down. So two of these are really, really slow. And by slow, I just mean that you're not really in the driver's seat so much. For me, that's not a non-starter necessarily, but usually, if you're trying to start a directory kind of business, then you do want to see that cash flow early on. For one, starting any kind of business is really hard and you have to commit and you have to keep doing it over and over and over. So, you do want to see those little successes along the way. If it takes you 6 months, 12 months just to see any kind of income from that, I mean, it's great if that builds up over time and you're satisfied with that. But for most people, they're just not going to have the momentum to keep battling through that over and over and over again. So that's one reason why I don't think the slow way is best. But let's just go ahead and dive into it. So fast is one that gives you a little bit more of puts you in the driver's seat, and that's kind of like the real meat of it. So the three methods basically get a ton of traffic, and then you can utilize ads. You can utilize other things. We'll go into that a little more deeply. Get a ton of paid listings. Now this is similar to getting traffic in that you actually have to have some demand there, but it doesn't necessarily tie to traffic, and I'll explain that. And then using a funnel for your own services. And now this is that faster one that I mentioned. So we're going to dive into that one as well. But again, like this puts you in the driver's seat. So you're not just trying to wait for things to build over time. So let's go ahead and dive in. So the main problem with it, well, the main function of the traffic game is in this, I would say, beautiful little diagram that I made here. Basically, your model is a bunch of people come to the directory site, you're serving ads on it, and then you have an endless bucket of money, which I think is pretty accurate for what we all want. That bucket of money may be small, it may be large. It really depends. So, for example, this is kind of where you talk about passive income. Sounds phenomenal. I mean, look, passive income obviously sounds phenomenal. It's not as easy as you'd hope. Hence, why most people don't make their income from passive income, their money from passive income, not unless they're like investors, and that's they already have wealth. Again, requires massive volume. So depending upon if you're making a directory site, what your niche is, so that like what your focus is, that might be more volume than others. If you're a financial site, then the ads they're gonna pay more. If you, for example, are like a nerd wallet where um, you're talking about credit cards, you're talking about loans, all the advertisers on there are gonna pay a lot more for that audience. than if you're talking about something um, pretty generic, like let's say the best socks. Um, Sock advertisers are simply not going to pay as much, and also if you're making a website devoted to socks, more power to you. I don't know that you're going to get the volume, but nonetheless, you require a lot more volume just to actually get to that money where it's passive and it's something that's coming in that is meaningful to you. Another, I'm going to say another like problem with that is there's a lot of competition already, so you have to put in a lot of work just to get that volume and build it up. Now, if you do have some kind of really focused perspective on a niche, you can definitely kind of like outgame others that are already in the area, especially if it's maybe an older established website that you're competing against. It's just one or two directory sites that are also competing for that space. And they have older technology. They're not as their UX isn't as good. They're still going to be entrenched, so you do have to work with that. But there are ways. And again, like the math is, you really need to put a lot into growth. So this is something that definitely could be very profitable over time. And I've got a couple examples here of sites that are really profitable, but it's a lot more of that long-term kind of growth. Again, a strategy where you need to have money or time to put toward this initially. So that kind of makes it a little bit more difficult because for most of us, if we had the money or time to invest, this may or may not be the best option. So you just want to bear that in mind. A couple examples here, and this is estimated annual revenue because these are private. But imdb.com, now it does have a couple of different angles, so it's not just ads. It also does affiliate commissions, premium subscription service. Um, and I think I shouldn't say all, but definitely a lot of those affiliate commissions are probably going to be streaming services, so it's recurring revenue for them. But if we just take a look at this kind of like revenue analysis from this company, which Grojo, if you're not familiar, they just kind of track private companies and estimate revenue based on a bunch of different signals there. They're saying that IMDb gets $224.7 million per year. So obviously, you can make a ton of money that way. But IMDb also has put in a ton of investment just into the technology, into the content, keeping everything current. So it's not something that you're going to really just spin up in a day or two. Similarly, and this is one that I hadn't heard of, I'm going to open it just so we can see. Um, so this is called happycow.net. So first off, they have a .net domain, which you don't see as many of those really popular. But look, this is actually a very well done site. Now you can see the ads down here. I have an ad blocker, so it's removed. You can see that they're getting money from ads. I would bet they're also doing premium listings. You can see that there are options for other sites that are completely niche. So, IMDb, the niche is the movies, but this is even more niche, I would consider. It's find vegan restaurants nearby. They have an app. So I think they've monetized this in a bunch of different ways. Again, I don't know the funding toward it initially, but if you look at this estimate now, it puts it in the range of $14.1 million. So again, you're really you can make a ton of money doing it this way, but it requires a lot more upfront investment. So you just want to be aware of that, and that's why traffic to me is not the best direction to initially go. And then you have small niche directory where you're making $500 to $5,000 a month, which honestly, if that's completely passive, that's awesome. But you're still going to want probably 10,000 monthly visitors and a decent RPM of $20. So something where that RPM being the revenue per mil, which is per 1,000 views. So that's going to be something where, again, it's probably going to be a little bit higher ticket item. We're not talking about like your sock reviews, but something that's going to be more in line with finance. It could be something that's more of like a local directory and really, really small. But in that case, getting that traffic number is going to be pretty hard too. So you got to kind of like weigh the options there. But generally speaking, again, small niche directory traffic's probably not going to be the main thing. This is certainly real money. This is easily car payment and then some if you get up to that $1,000. But it's not necessarily going to be your like money maker and allow you to quit your job or whatever, retire. Again, there are definitely exceptions, but I personally don't like to invest in assuming I'm going to be the exception. just because I'm not exceptional. Um, that said, you might be. Method two is the subscription game. So this is something that I think is really interesting, just as like a concept model, because subscriptions have become so popular across our lives, and that's kind of been like the model everything moves toward now, for better or for worse. And this, you have a ton of people, they're paying for premium listings, so that's what they're subscribing. Their subscription is basically either an annual or monthly premium listing, rather than just like a basic free listing on your website. This would be like a business listing if your website is about just auto shops in Texas, then they might be able to get a free listing, and then they can pay, let's say, $150, $200 a year to have a premium listing that's a little bit better. So this is, business owners would pay you to have premium listings on your directory site, and then endless buckets of money. Um, and I kind of like walk through that here. Whatever you offer for that premium listing, that's going to vary based on the capabilities of the site, whatever you set up. But usually people are offering like either additional photos or photos at all. Like maybe basic listings don't have photos. Sometimes they offer videos, they offer priority placement in search, they offer some SEO. They can offer a lot of different enhancements to the website just to make it more attractive and more likely that someone's going to get a lead. Now with these, one of the main things that I always think of whenever you're charging for a service, for a product or anything like that, if it's a subscription model, you want someone to make the fewest buying decisions possible. So what I mean by that is, rather than charging a monthly fee where every month they see it and they ask themselves, was it worth let's say $49 this month? You would much rather have them see it once a year and ask themselves, was it worth the you know, $600 this year? Generally speaking, that's going to be a yes. Now, for these directory sites, I tend to see more often, unless they're really, really niche and specialized in something like law firms. Yeah, I'd say like law firms, medicine, something where it's a higher ticket item. Usually people are charging like $100 a year, maybe $250 a year. So it's not necessarily going to be the same amount that people are charging as they would, or sorry, that you would get per year as you would get if people were buying per month. But more often than not, it's an easier sell, and people are going to renew because they're going to think, well, if I get one sale, one customer, one patient per year for that $250 or whatever it is, then it's totally worth it. So they're making one buying decision per year, and it's very easy to justify. So you want to keep that in mind if you're doing premium listings. That's my personal feeling, and that's the advice that I've always gotten. So that's just kind of like my thought there. But again, this is a little bit slower because just to build up the volume of people who are getting premium listings, you're going to have to put in a lot more effort than if you were just, sending out an email necessarily and saying, "Hey, like, buy a listing to my site." You're going to have to build the value of the site. If they haven't heard of your site, and it's not necessarily an attractive offer, and then some of them may or may not understand like SEO benefits from the site. If your site is getting a lot of volume, they'll want to know that and understand how many leads they can expect, how that works, all of that. So there's a lot more work into this sometimes. But Yelp, for example, let's pull that up. Yeah, so Yelp, for example, funding is 56 million. So you can see they had a lot of money coming in just in order to build it. But its revenue is close to $1 billion. So you can't really complain about that. Problem again is they had to put a lot of effort into growing it so that it was attractive. And their model is not just premium subscriptions, but that's one part of it. Let me take a sip of water here. All right. So again, the exception here is if you do have a very well-defined niche, and I want to point this one out. This is a company that I found doing research about directories a couple months ago. Really, really cool, honestly. Now, their model is more than just premium subscriptions, they also sell services. We're going to get into that. But ThomasNet, they're just for like industry suppliers of like electrical, like kind of weird manufacturing. Stuff. I know stuff is very, very specific here. But basically, they act as not a marketplace. You can actually purchase from them, but they're kind of like the go between. And so you can see like automation and electronics. Let's just click on one of these. So basically, suppliers pay to get listed here, and then someone can contact them. Now, these, and obviously, you see their ads here too. These are massive contracts because when people are contacting these suppliers, it's for thousands of parts or whatever it is. So they're willing to pay a premium, and this is a very very niche directory, but it's got a broad footprint, really well founded. Again, it's very very specific in what it's doing. So if you are someone who has that kind of where you're able to connect a a supplier and someone who has a lot of demand for that, then this could be an opportunity where you're not even a marketplace. So they're not even selling on your site, but you're the bridge between those two things. So there are those opportunities, but again, I would view that more as the exception to the rule. And if you have that advantage, totally worth considering. But if you don't, then you're probably going to be doing a lot more manual hustling just to sell those listings, those premium listings, which, by the way, definitely worth selling listings, premium listings, because you can combine that with some other things. But again, I wouldn't make that the foundation and your kind of like quote unquote method to get passive income from a directory. That's just not, it should be part of the strategy because extra incremental revenue for no extra cost is always good, but it shouldn't be your primary source, or at least not your plan. So method three, the one that I highlighted up front, the client game, and this is the thing where you're actually so you have your directory site, you reach out to prospective clients, which are these, I think, perfectly drawn stick figures. I think we can all agree, and they supply you endless buckets of money. And it is that simple. No, I'm just kidding. It's not that simple because you have to fulfill a service for them, but the main ideas with the directory site. So let's say you've already got your service business, you do paid ads. So you do paid ads. Let's say you're even more specific. You do paid ads for dentists in Texas. So you do paid ads for dentists in Texas. Whenever you're reaching out to them now, you're one of, let's say, dozens of people who reach out per week, whether you're reaching out on LinkedIn, on just via email. You're just kind of falling through the cracks, just like everyone else. You're either getting sent to spam, getting opened and not responded to, or they're just not even opening your emails or looking at your request to connect through LinkedIn or whatever. That said, if you have a directory site, then you actually pique their interest. And I'm saying this based on experience. So I've done a couple of videos now where we talk about cold email open rates and response rates being like 1 to 5% on average. 5% being if you're really really good, and not all of those are positive responses. But if you're doing this method because you're contacting them in a different way, you're not saying, "Hey, like I want to do some PPC ads for you." Instead, you're saying rather than just like I want to do paid ads for you, here's a directory site listing. This is your website or this is your business shown on the directory site itself. Can you just verify everything's correct? You haven't even asked them for anything at this point. You've given them an opportunity as far as they're concerned, and it takes all of 2 seconds. So, for one thing, if they're a small business owner, especially if they're the like practice owner and they're also practicing, the last thing they want to do is deal with extra decisions based around something that's not necessarily crucial to their business. And if you're reaching out and saying, I want to provide a service, but they're actually busy in the office, they're going to think, okay, well, I don't need this person, or it's just not something I want to deal with, and they're going to ignore you. But if you say, hey, this is your practice's information, is it correct? Because it's listed online for people to see. Now they take interest because if that's incorrect, they want to correct it. And if it's listed out in the email or whatever when you contact them and it's correct, they can just say yes and confirm it and it's done. So you've automatically made it very, very easy for them to respond in 2 seconds and tell you whether or not the information is correct. And that opens the door. Later on, later on, once you've got their trust, then you can start saying, hey, you know what? I've noticed that your like Instagram, you haven't posted in X weeks. You used to post before. That's something that we actually help with. Is that something that you want me to do? Or we've noticed that you're not running ads, but your competitors are. Is that something that you want me to help with? That's something that we do. So you start to connect the dots here, and you've already established some kind of credibility and trust. You're not some like nameless, faceless company just reaching out saying, "Hey, let me do your paid ads." And they're like, "We don't. Why would we trust you?" You've established some level of trust. So this is where the directory isn't the actual product itself, and that's that mindset shift that I'm mentioning. Instead, it's the lead generator, and it's a higher ticket because you're not going to charge just like $99 a month for running paid ads. You're going to charge more than that, and you're going to be able to have fewer clients, but do more for them in order to make more money. So again, like this is where you're in the driver's seat. You are going to have to do more work because passive income is not a reality for most people. While you're trying to build a business, it's just again the exception should not prove the rule here, or should not be what you're going by here. But it's fairly easy to get started on this. So what we recommend, basically, you choose your niche. So this can be just a local area, and this is a lot of what we do. So um, I live in a smaller city outside of Austin in Texas. That would be my area. So my niche would be my local area, or it could be something like picking an industry. Then we create the directory, which I know sounds easier said than done, but don't worry, I'm going to mention something with a smart directory AI layer later, so you can see it's not actually that hard and you don't have to worry. Then you use AI, you use a web scraper, use VAs to build listings that you can put into that directory. So we recommend D7. I've used Outscraper as well in the past. Those are both really good. You can also use AI options like Clay mixed with like LinkedIn Sales Navigator, Apollo, whatever. There are a bunch of different options out there. Easiest way, I think, if you're doing a local directory by far, is either D7 or Outscraper. And then if you're doing industry, you might want to mix in some of these other things. Um, and then your automated directory email sequences. So this is going to be something where, like I mentioned with outreach, you're not going to just go ahead and say, "Hey, like, can I?" You're in a directory. By the way, can I do all your ads? You want to make it a little bit more subtle than that because you do want to start by just producing some value for them, and just this is something that you want built in so that when you send out that initial first email, which people usually don't respond to the first email, you send out a first email giving them information. Hey, this is your listings on here. Is this the correct information? Let us know, yes or no, whatever. You want to send out a follow-up email, up to 3 more, follow-up emails, just to, like, kind of give them an opportunity to confirm it. Again, as a business owner, you're getting tons of emails per day. So even if there's something that you wanna respond to, it might come in while you're running around the office. You're busy, you've got meetings, whatever. So follow-up, the what is it? The money's in the follow-up. What's that? I think that's the saying. We're gonna go with that. So you wanna have that automated sequence. And then once you have your foot in the door, so once they respond, that's when you want to pitch your higher value service. And that's going to be, in my opinion, usually a little more tailored to them. So, and you can do this two ways. One, you can build your list. So you're only putting in people who need your service. So that when you're doing this scraping and building your list, um, you've kind of got the targeting pre-built in. So then you can automate more of this pitching the high value service because they're pre-qualified for it based on what you looked at. Or you could do the other thing where, let's say you just get everyone within a certain zip code and you've got them all already listed in your directory. You can then go and qualify them individually as you go down the list and say, this person would be great for PPC ads. This person, I know they've done social posting in the past, they haven't done it in a while. Let's market that to them. So then you can reach out in these different ways, and now you're offering services. So that's why this one, it's a lot more of you being in the driver's seat and a lot more hands-on, but it's also a lot more lucrative. So, I mean, here's an example pitch. I kind of went through all of this. Yeah, SEO, AI chatbot, lead flow, etc. Whatever you actually do, of course, you can pitch there. And then the math is pretty straightforward here. So, oops, 5 clients a month at $1,500 per month. What's that? 7,500. No, let's do math. Let's do math. Um, yeah, 7,500. I was right. So then times 12, that's $90,000. So this is definitely the fastest way, and that's what I would recommend again because first off, I like being in the driver's seat. I don't like trying to just wait for things to happen because I get antsy. And then if I'm waiting 6 months for traffic and nothing's happening, I'm going to change plans and change directions. And that usually just makes things worse. Excuse me one sec. So, no idea if you're the same way, but that's kind of how I am. If it's money, my money that I'm trying to make, I would much rather be in the driver's seat. All right. So, quick note: Smart Directory. Now that's the like tool that I mentioned earlier. That basically this part just kind of checks the box for you. So it sets up the entire directory literally in minutes. And next week, I'm going to go through and do an actual setup there. And that's going to be something that we have a video of Tom setting it up in 17 minutes. It has gotten much, much faster, which I mean, that means in an hour or two, I would say two if I'm being conservative, because you have to like get your leads list and upload it. And then there are a couple things that you want to tweak on the emails that you send out. But with an hour or two with Smart Directory AI, you can have this second step already set up. And then oops, this is something that you can do yourself. So I'm just going to put a thumbs up there. You obviously have to pick your niche yourself, and it can be a local, again, it can be just a local area, so a smaller city, or like I've seen some good directories where it's like North Phoenix. So Phoenix is obviously massive and a huge urban sprawl, but if you do North Phoenix, if that's a good keyword that a lot of people are searching, then that's also going to be a good directory if you still want to do a local directory, but you're in a bigger city and you want to do something near you. I have no idea if North Phoenix is taken, so who knows? The automated sequences now, that's something that again comes with Smart Directory AI, so that's already there. So you don't have to use it. You can build all this on your own. I'm just telling you one advantage because this is what helps you get that initial push. So within 2 hours, you can actually just start doing this. And then once you get your foot in the door, you also have that opportunity because there are more automated flows for different pitches within Smart Directory AI. Again, you can build all of this yourself. And then we have a lot of videos where I'm talking about different ways to do it. But what I want to emphasize is you can do all this in 2 hours and have your outreach basically started for you, as long as you take an hour to build this, take an hour or take half an hour to figure this out. Within half an hour, you can have the rest of this set up with Smart Directory AI. So you could actually be, instead of just trying to figure things out, build a directory for a couple weeks, you could be doing it, I don't know, this afternoon. Um, so let's see. Got a quick comment question here. Okay, so I'm gonna read the question or the comment there. So, add the $29 a month for the best prospecting tool I've ever seen. Thousands of free listings to contact, but how do we get viewership and good stats for the AI directory? So when you say viewership, do you mean like how do we actually get people to come to the directory? And so because you're thinking of selling it based on we get 30,000 people a month. Is that kind of what you're thinking? You can respond there, but I'm gonna assume that's kind of what you mean. So when you initially have that directory, there are a couple of things. First off, it will take time for anything to get indexed, but the SEO, the built-in SEO, is pretty solid there, and they're still improving it. So like you have your sitemap, um, and that's gonna a lot of the people who've built them have already seen after I think I'm gonna say on average 2 weeks because I've seen that period with newer sites. It starts to get indexed more and more, so you can see that go up. If you're in an area where it's highly competitive, it's going to depend. But for most people, we're not actually selling the directory itself. So you're going to give them a backlink if they're listed in the directory. They get a backlink, and that's positive for the SEO. But you're not selling the directory itself so much as like the premium listing. You still can have that, and that's still something that we do have a flow for selling the premium listing. But again, you're going to make more money if you sell them a service. So over time, you will gain traffic, but I wouldn't make your primary argument say geared toward the premium listing. I wouldn't focus on that as much. That said, especially if you're in kind of like a good niche, that might be something you do want to focus on. And if you're selling a bunch of different features that are really, really sought after, so let's say your basic listing, people can't have any photos, but your premium listing they can, and they can also have like a video introduction, and they also get to post jobs and post events. And let's say you even do additional services, like you send out a local newsletter. Like you can build that so that's something people are willing to pay for, regardless of whether or not they're of use. But I would focus much more on using it as a prospecting tool for your business. And when you're talking about the premium listing for them, I wouldn't promise a certain number of views. I wouldn't promise a certain number of leads unless you can actually deliver that. The last thing you want to do is actually like lie or make things up. So it would take time to build up your view count. Is that kind of explaining what I mean? Or sorry, is that answering your question? All right. I did not hear anything back, so I'm gonna assume that answers the question. Any other questions? I'm pretty much done with the stream here. This was just gonna be kind of a shorter one, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm gonna put a link to Smart Directory AI here. Let me actually grab that for you. And I'm gonna put a description. So I'll put a link in the description, but let me go ahead and grab it. Should have had that one ready. Oh well. Give me 1 second here. Oh, and the other thing I didn't mention, there's a free trial. So I should have mentioned that. Free trial. And there's also a free trial for Go High Level. So if you don't have that, because these two work hand in hand, free trial of. So you can check that out. Go give it a look. If you have any other questions, just list them in the comments and I'll answer them later. But yeah, thanks for hopping on. Really appreciate it. And best of luck. Hopefully, this was helpful.